everybody. So we're going to continue our narrative writing today. And yesterday you were supposed to have come up with characters for a story and the setting for your story. So if you remember, yesterday my characters in my story were my kids, Hannah, Zach, and Cassie, and my setting was a forest. So if we remember over here, our narrative writing, we always have a beginning, and the beginning of a story introduces who is in the story and where it takes place, okay? But there's something else that's important when you're writing at the beginning. We're going to talk about something called transition words. Can you say transition words? All right, good job. So when I'm starting with the beginning, I'm just going to hold up this piece of paper. There are some phrases or words that we can start with to show it's the beginning of our story. So for example, the word first, you could start with the phrase in the beginning. You could start with one day, if your story takes place during the day, or maybe your story takes place at night. You could start with one night. You could even say to start. If your story maybe talks about, is like make believe, you could start with once upon a time, or you can even start with the phrase first of all. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start my story today with one day. Okay? So I'm going to write it up here. This is going to be my paper. At home, you're obviously going to you could write in a notebook or something, or a piece of paper. So I'm going to start my story with one day. And then I'm going to go ahead and introduce my who in the story, or my characters. And remember, mine are Hannah, Zach, and Cassie, and yours are going to be different. One day, Hannah, and I'm going to separate my people using a comma. A comma, remember, gives me a little bit of a break while I'm reading. One day, Hannah, Zach, and I'm going to use another comma because I have another person to add, and Cassie. Okay, so now remember, the next job you have is to tell where your story takes place, okay? And remember, my story is happening in a forest. So before I just write forest down, though, I want to think of helping the reader, whoever's going to read my story, to picture my story in their mind. So I'm not just going to write down forest. That doesn't give a lot of description to the forest. Okay, we want to add a little detail. So I'm going to write, when we're in a forest, I know there's lots and lots of trees, and so not a ton of sun comes down through the trees. So I'm going to say that my forest is shady. Okay, it's not, there's not a lot of sun coming through. Okay, so I'm going to add that detail to the word forest. So far I have one day, Hannah, Zach, and Cassie and I'm going to say walking. Okay, I'm going to add a little detail, then it tells you what they're doing. We're walking in a shady forest. And then I end with my period. Okay, so boys and girls, your job now is to use the characters in the setting that you wrote about yesterday. And I want you to come up with a really great beginning to your story, okay? So you have to introduce the who is in your story and your setting. Also, I want you to pick one of these phrases to start your writing with. Okay, so you got a couple things to remember here, and I'm just going to go ahead and remind you. You need to start with the phrase from the beginning. You need to tell me who your characters are, and you need to tell me what your setting is. But remember, I added a descriptive word. I want to challenge you to add a descriptive word to describe your setting. Okay? All right, so I expect some really great beginning sentences to our story. I can't wait to read them. Okay, have a great day and happy writing.